think John said, nobody's going to want to put that shit in their hair. I remember that one.
The terms of the contract it's pretty clear that you didn't really want to agree anything.
You opened the salon in 88, but of course there was the whole big story before that.
And he was playing with that, and that was the beginning of frizzies.
I mean, I think he did it mostly because he thought you must have been mad to be taking on this commitment. He thought he had to step in.
Best feeling is when you buy it and when you sell it.
When you sell it, yeah.
Yeah, well, I had to buy the whole building, but I couldn't afford it. And we just thought, enough's enough. And I'm just not having all this anymore. Welcome to our podcast with me, Michael Van Clarke.
And me, Nicky Clarke. Okay, so Michael, that period when you joined, I mean, not only you joined us at 78, 79? 78. Yeah. So you've actually gone on, I mean, ironically, when John thinking it doesn't work with brothers, to go on and probably be one of the biggest money takers. That period in the early 80s, where you were doing some editorial stuff. I seem to remember there was that haircut on the front cover of the Observer or something that seemed to get you a whole bunch of clothes. But going on to become quite a substantial person through the early 80s. I'm in the salon, but I'm mixing it up with, editorial stuff. So why don't you tell us about, because there is that, and I don't even know half of it, tell us about that period, because you opened the salon in 88, but of course there was the whole big story before that. So pick it up wherever you want, because your reasons for wanting to open up a salon, my bits of involvement or non-involvement, and what happened.
Well, I think we go back from there. If you remember, in the early 80s and mid 80s, we were doing a lot of product development. You came out with the green lotion, which was really the first blow dry spray, thickening blow dry spray. I was working on the wax.
You have to remind me. Yeah, actually, that is a very funny period, because of course I was doing all the stuff in America, bringing back. Of course, green lotion was
setting lotion in a bottle.
It was a lady set
put into a spray. It was Clinol.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was
Would you know what happened before that? I know before you started. Do you know what happened, how that came about? So they were in glass vials.
Yeah, small files, one-use files.
Yeah, exactly. So
vials.
I was going out with Wendy. That sort of gothic, jet black hair up to here.
Yes.
Do you remember when she was between Martin Kemp and Billy Idol?
Right.
A hairdresser bit.
Right.
So she had hair that defied gravity. So, and they would normally use either hairspray or shellac or sugar and water. Those files kept breaking in my bag. So I decanted them into one. Okay. And she took it out of the bag and basically thought it was hairspray. Started doing it. And I went, oh my God, what? And as I'd started to do that, realised that we could defy gravity. So that, of course, we called it green lotion. When I said to John, why don't we call it thickening lotion? He said, it's not gravy. He said, so that was that. And then, of course, the next one was when you and I were in the kitchen. I was bringing back the wax, which was originally the Murray's, which was $1.98, orange.
Yeah.
And it was used on kind of, black hair to keep it really groomed and stuff. And, of course, then we brought it back. I think John said, nobody's going to want to put that shit in their hair. I remember that one distinctly. But we changed
the wrong consistency.
No, but we changed it. You were in the kitchen.
Yeah, and I've got the saucepan still that I was using to melt.
So how did we change the colour? Or how did you change the colour?
Well, it's all these different waxes that we were blending to get a consistency that would work on European hair.
Really? I thought
that was it.
But we did it originally just with Murray's, which was orange, and just putting it in two different parts, didn't we?
No, there's more to it than that, Nick.
Was it? I thought the $1.98 for one part, and then we had two of them. But I do remember it was pink.
There was a bit more than that.
There must have been a bit more than that. I just got the end. So how did you
that
make
was
it
the
pink?
beginning of really what were all the grooming balms and pastes and waxes and everything.
I know, because
as much as your green lotion was the beginning of all the blow dry sprays.
Well, I mean, when in the studios, that was what was happening, because I would go in with the green lotion literally and change the way things were, because normally makeup would be first, do hair afterwards. So I'd do hair first, pile all this stuff in and pin it all up, and then they'd do the makeup, then come back to it and just do nothing more than just brush it and work it around. The only product other than the Murray's one that I used, which was the pomade, was the Kiehl's silk groom, which was fine. When they started using black and white on it, that was where the problem was, because you couldn't get the stuff out. I mean, it was like ridiculous. But at least that one, but that's where we wanted it refined. So that was when we refined it. So how did it turn pink?
That's early 80s. But then, we were pushing for products. There weren't products in those days. So we were pushing the beginning of the whole product revolution.
It was.
And then it was when John started playing with laminates that he brought back from America and using that on clients. It was the beginning of...
That's not what happened at all.
Huh?
No, that's not what happened at all. The laminates was a Sebastian product.
Yeah, Sebastian, that's right.
It's called laminates.
That's what I'm saying.
But it was available here.
Yeah, so, but it was an American company.
It's an American company, yeah, but it was part of the Weller stable. So...
At that stage? I don't think they were at that stage. They bought them later.
Actually, you might be right.
It was an LA company, more for the professionals to use. And he started using it on models in the studio and realised that this might be something to use on clients. And he was playing with that. And that was the beginning of Frizzies.
Yeah, no, I know, because that's what we did in the beginning.
So as he got more into developing that whole product side and wasn't really around anymore, it just seemed like there was this big void in the salon. And that's where he wanted to get all of us locked in.
Yeah, you're right.
Because we were the biggest money earners. To get all of us locked in.
But it was also because, and I remember because we went out to dinner, the first order from Boots for the shampoos and conditioners was a £60,000 order.
Right.
Because I remember when he got it, he and I, although he did most of it, went to a Chinese restaurant to celebrate. So I remember using my chopsticks. I thought this was great. 60,000 order. Because, of course, Boots were the first people to do designer haircare. And you try and say that to people now, that before that, there was nothing. Nothing. Hairspray.
There was nothing.
I mean, it was like nothing at all. So, I mean, yes, you're right. So that was, and it was actually it was laminates, but, of course, Mike Peters, who formulated it, did alter it slightly, but of course it was all silicone based.
Yeah.
Never really get off.
And that was the beginning of the whole silicone revolution.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which we're sort of moving out of a bit
totally
now.
Out of. Yeah.
But that was that period where for a couple of years we were shuttling between lawyers, his lawyer, our lawyers, working on these contracts where he was trying to tie us in.
60. So what, sort of from 80...
It's probably from 84.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Probably 84. So there was myself, you,
Yeah.
Peter, Anthony.
Yes, that's right.
But, the terms of the contract it's pretty clear that you didn't really want to agree anything.
I don't think I actually got a contract.
Well, you came to some meetings, I'm sure. But it was pretty clear that there wasn't any agreement there that was going to be had. And that's why I said at the end, I need to feel that I've got a future.
Do you remember
and he wasn't around.
Do you remember that there was a time at Woodley, up at the house, at John and Lou's house, where John was in very thoughtful mode, and he actually remembered, must have been around about the late, was it? Maybe about 80, maybe it was 1980, something like that. But I remember him saying, what do I do to stop the chain of events of people, working for somebody, then get to a level, then leave and doing that, that whole thing. And I do remember you kind of very sort of took the tone mood down instantly and just went, well, you just need to make it better for the person
to stay and
to go, really simply.
Yeah,
which was of course true. And I always remember his expression was slightly not what he wanted.
Well, I've got the contract, the final one that I just walked away from, and the terms. And you imagine this is like the peak of my career. It was a tie-in for 15 years, and in order to get 1% of the company, I had to double the size of the business every 2 years for 15 years.
Well, so what was it? A kind of a managerial role or something?
Well, it was to get 1% equity.
But I don't even know any of this. Yeah. But was that on your take-ins, or was he asking you to be responsible?
To be responsible for the whole business.
But you would have been responsible for.
Yeah. But we were all connected to that. But that's like Amazon. That's like the growth of Amazon. I mean, he had it in his head because he'd grown a company from nothing for 2 or 3 years. Well, it's not difficult to grow it fast in the first few years, but to carry on at that pace for 15 years, it's like, well, you don't.
The lawyers would have drawn that. Surely they would have said, John,
you'd need 1,000 salons in 15 years. Well, it just wasn't going to happen for such a small amount.
But did you say that?
Yeah,
or did you not bother
I said it to Gail, and then she sort of got it.
Yeah, well.
And I think she tried to work on him, but by that time, I'd made up my mind.
Well, that must have been,
and it was a wrench because I loved John and I loved working there, but I also wanted to know I had progression and a future. So leaving wasn't easy. There wasn't any great desire for me to have a business. It was more I had to move away from something that was stagnation.
Sure.
And so that was really, I mean, I remember, spending probably the best part of a year trying to find somewhere. And I failed to get that one in Knightsbridge.
Well, I went
thank
with
God.
you to that one.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Now and then came across Beaumont Street.
Very unusual one, though, because I did come to,
Xavier, it was.
Xavier, was it?
Xavier. It was their premises.
Yeah, that sort of tall, thin building. But I do remember going to you. That was even the possibility. I must have known then that you were going, and maybe I would have gone. But to go from, that's an obvious one. I mean, you say now that thank God, but to go to Beaumont Street, which is not the most obvious of places. No. I mean, first of all, we knew Marylebone. When I left with John in '76. We went to Marylebone. So we'd gone from Mayfair to Marylebone.
To New Cavendish Street.
To Blandford Street.
Blandford Street.
So, I mean, even more, we had charity shops everywhere.
Just off Marylebone High Street.
Absolutely. I mean, the Marylebone was not that great.
No, it wasn't.
So I'm thinking now, even for you, in 80, whatever, that time in the mid-80s, Marylebone wasn't still particularly that great.
It wasn't. But
and you're in the street with no other shops.
No, it wasn't at all. But the funny thing is that you could see this little area that was so close. Regent's Park was at the end of it. Beautiful. Bond Street was 5 minutes walk.
Yeah, but that doesn't always work.
It was so central and yet it was so unloved.
I get all that, but that can take time. Was the Comrade shop open?
No. None of that was open.
That's still, that's a brave move.
None of that. Well, it wasn't. I was familiar with the area.
It
was a back street. I was happy in a back street.
There's a lot of charity shops in Marylebone.
Well, but that happened literally the day after I took the building, because what had happened is in the 80s, the Howard Walden estate had tried to copy Carnaby Street. They'd seen the success of Carnaby Street in the 70s and thought, you know what, we should do this. So they allowed it to become a fashion street. And then when the recession hit in the late 80s, the whole thing collapsed. So by the time we moved in, about a quarter of the shops were charity shops.
Yeah, they were.
They got rid of all of the staples, and it was a big mistake. And so the area was just not loved. And it took them to rethink that and create this village idea and choose the shops that actually people would see as destination shops. So they'd come from other areas, knowing that even if they took a loss on the high street, the value of their entire residential and office portfolio would go up.
Right.
And so that was the clever strategy for Howard Walden that owns that whole area.
But for you personally, you're still in a street, not even directly off of it, but almost off it, in a street that has got only a hospital. I mean, a decent hospital. Yeah. But
I quite like that.
No, and we were, we're
the only shop.
Well, we got used to that, even with John in New Cavendish Street to a certain extent.
Yeah,
that he was brave enough to do that as well. And actually, there is a point of not being on the high street, but I know some of it. I don't know all the story, but of course, there are some sort of bits about that kind of where stars align, and it must have kind of set you off. I mean, of course, not least because of the Muse, not least because of who owned it. So what was all that?
The Muse was Clarke's Muse. So
and Clarke with an E.
I took that as an omen. But there still wasn't this drive to have something. It was almost like it.
Did you know who the name of the original owner at this point?
No, William Clarke was the first person recorded in the street.
Which, of course, is our father's name. So double omen time.
Yeah, but I was still moving away from something. I was motivated to move away from stagnation. I wasn't motivated to move towards something that, you know, if I'd heard the comment at that time, if ever you think you want to have your own business, go and lay down until the feeling passes. If I'd heard that at that time, I would have taken note.
Is that like the one of whenever you want to buy a boat or something?
Yeah,
well, the best time of buying a boat is when you buy it. And then
best feeling is when you buy it and when you sell it.
When you sell it, yeah.
But had I heard that, I would have maybe thought about it more. But I was so wanting to get away from something that I just knew I needed to get away from. And it just meant that it was the stress of the whole thing was awful. I remember being physically sick
but the stress
every day.
But the stress of having all of that come about, it's got to be. I mean, it's a very brave move when you think. But the amount of stress of, you know, the financial commitment and obviously staffing commitment is. I mean, you know, it's all very well you being a busy.
That's right.
Stylist, but of course,
no, I hadn't thought it all through.
Clearly not.
I hadn't thought it all through because I was moving away from something, not really clearly thinking what I was going towards.
That's interesting.
And so that's where it was super stressful, and especially, as you know, the first few months where it all just went a bit pear-shaped.
Well, I mean, not least first of all, I mean, if you go back to it, and I've seen the pictures because you documented the whole thing, the building of the salon. Great to see Dad. Well, he must have been 80-something then.
Yeah, like late 70s.
Late 70s, who was practically like chief foreman.
Yeah.
You know, which was kind of great. I mean, I think he did it mostly because he thought you must have been mad to be taking on this commitment. He thought he had to step in to at least save you some money.
Probably.
Probably.
But I think he enjoyed being there, and we liked having him there.
Yeah, it was great, actually. Well, I think it was only you and I think our other siblings kind of got slightly offended by the fact that it was either always at yours or always at mine doing something. We kind of, you know, geared him to be the man, you know. But yeah, no, of course he was. I was telling somebody today, actually, not quite on the subject, about his kind of the way he was, and it was a client who said to me, you know, well, what did he do? I said he was a foreman at Bankside Power Station. Of course, actually, Bankside Power Station is now the Tate Modern.
Yeah.
And when he was made redundant in whatever that was, 71 or whatever, I don't know.
Something like that.
Far from being annoyed, he actually wanted it to be this thing. He didn't want to see it go the way of Battersea and just sit there. Yeah. And there was a documentary that they did on a Channel 4 documentary they did on me, but it was on straight after a BBC one where I'd had cameras constantly on me, and this one came in, and I thought, oh, God, fucking cameras again, you know what I mean? But I agreed to do it. But the thing about it that I loved the most was that it's got the shot, because he wanted to do it differently, so he got the shot of Dad.
At Bankside.
Yeah, because the Tate very kindly opened it for us an hour early. So there's this long shot of coming down the hall. And of course, when it did open, I think the first installation was the Janusz Kapoor, which was very industrial. They kept all of the innards, so it looked very much like it. And I don't know if you have a memory of it, but of course, I have a memory, especially 1963, when I was 5,
Christmas parties.
The Christmas parties, because of course they had the big works do's, 300 of the kids there with those big long tables in that very room. So it was a big thing. We didn't have TVs then. We didn't have, forget about colour, we had a TV then. So of course we had all of those big screen things. I mean, it was the Harold Hare annual was a big moment for me to get that one.
Well, I used to go back and play snooker with him there.
Did you? Yeah. But did you go to any of the actual parties?
Yeah. Christmas parties.
Yeah, so why do I only remember? Do you know why? I know why I remember. Because that was when I realised that Father Christmas didn't exist. Because the Father Christmas came round and, you know, it was just ridiculous. He had grey trousers at the bottom with black shoes. Father Christmas wouldn't
never have done that.
I would have had boots properly.
Yeah.
So I knew that was the end of it. So I don't remember anything else after that, but clearly you probably do. So, but you went back. What, when Dad was still working there?
Yeah. The last few years, there were only 4 people looking after the station.
Was he one of them?
Yeah, and it was only being called on for electricity once or twice a year.
Oh, really? God.
So it was a skeleton staff before they closed it.
Yeah, so actually, from his point of view, of course, actually to be suddenly busy at yours, busy at mine was probably just a
Yeah.
bit of a godsend, really. So, of course, actually, what made you actually go, this is the place I want to be in Beaumont Street, and let's just go for it?
I think it was hideous inside, which was quite attractive because it had been gutted. But,
Was it already gutted?
Yeah, it was gutted when I saw it.
Oh, the pictures I saw with all the old, sort of, medicine bottles, and because it was a pharmaceutical.
Yeah, all that had gone when I saw it. They'd
Okay.
all been auctioned off.
Oh,
It was all the panelling had gone.
Oh.
So what I saw was just like a bomb site with rubbish everywhere, but the space was amazing because you had this double width building, lateral building. The whole of the front was glass.
Yeah.
It was semi-detached, so you had light from one side, you had light at the back, light at the front, and you had a skylight in the studio. So the actual footprint of the building, it wasn't deep and narrow.
Yeah.
It just had a lovely feel about it, even though anyone looking at it would think, my God, it's a mess. But, ignoring that and just seeing the perimeter of it, just looked amazing.
So this didn't. So what you were buying originally was what, ground and
basement.
Basement.
Yeah, well, I had to buy the whole building, but I couldn't afford it, so I had to find someone to buy the upper half,
Right.
and do it on a back-to-back same day. So
how did that happen?
Yeah, it made it more complicated, but I managed to find someone to take the upper half.
With the view that you would, because of course you own that have the whole building. The view for you to take it later on, or?
Well, no, I mean, I hadn't thought. I'd love to have thought that, but that wasn't in my mind that it would ever happen.
So what? So I'm lost here. So what? You suddenly became an estate agent, and you had to go out and find somebody to buy.
I found someone to buy the upper half.
Okay.
So I got the head lease and then created a sublease for the upper half.
Right.
And that gave me the salon, which I wanted. Fortunately, unfortunately at the beginning, the people that took the upper half converted what was 12 rooms for nurses into 4 flats. And they were it was that 80s boom. It was 87, 88, the end of the 80s boom. And they were going to turn them and obviously make a big profit by turning them into 4 flats.
Right.
Unfortunately, the market turned, and we were at the beginning of the next 10 years of negative
it's just, I'm just
equity.
interjecting, just kind of ironic again, but the place you bought in Belsize Park was also off of doctors.
It was what?
There was doctors living there before, weren't there? The one that you gutted.
Student doctors, maybe.
Student doctors.
Yeah. No, but this one, so it all turned sour for them.
Right.
So then they decided to let them. So they couldn't sell them. They could let them. The market had turned. They couldn't make the money they wanted. So we had some very odd people going in, odd tenants. We had one where there was clearly a lot of men in raincoats going upstairs every hour or two. So we complained to the council, and they couldn't do anything about it.
Because they weren't what? Burberry raincoat.
Yeah, they were not the right outfits.
Right.
Yeah, but and then one day on a Monday, we were living in Chelsea at the time. We came by a day the salon was closed, and there was a queue of about 30 people with musical instruments waiting to get into the flats upstairs. Well, there were only 4 flats. And I thought, how are they going to get 30 people up there? Well, we found out it was something like the Romanian National Orchestra waiting for the key from the agent. And we just thought, enough's enough. I'm just not having all this anymore. So we tried to then, through lawyers, get something sorted so that they'd actually let them properly, and discovered that they'd never paid their mortgage.
Oh.
So while we were, frantically trying to get rid of them, their mortgage company were starting repossession.
Right, okay.
So in a way, it all worked out well. And I spent the next couple of years negotiating with the Nationwide to actually buy them back.
Oh, right. Okay.
I managed to get a mortgage with another branch of the Nationwide, and then the day before signing, the Nationwide found out that they were lending the money and said, no, we can't do that because we don't do that on property that we've repossessed. So it's like, then that was all up in the air again. I had to go and find someone else, but eventually we managed to buy them back. So that's how we ended up with the whole building.
So of course, I mean, that's been, I mean, a fortunate story, and of course, actually, it ends up being. I mean, I ended up working there for a little bit as well. Sort of.
Well, that's right. So that's probably 18 months in, and you had your, final breakdown of a relationship with John.
Yeah. So of course, that was an incredibly brave thing to do. I mean, not least because you were very, very young, but of course, dealing with all of those lawyers. How did that feel at that point? This is late 80s. I mean, scary times.
Yeah, I think I think for all of you allowing me to sort of deal with the lawyers, and I was only 25, but it was new to me. But I got a sense that actually it wasn't really going to go anywhere. So I pretty much, by the time I was 26, we'd had 2 years of it, and I, in my mind, walked away from it and started looking for my next step. So we opened our salon. I was 27, took on this big building. It was much more than I anticipated. You know, you think you can just carry on doing what you're doing, but actually suddenly you're having to wear 100 hats. And we worked our way through it. There were some complications at the start. We worked our way through, and then about 18 months later, you brought your circus to join us. And I think we'll have to carry that one on our next podcast.
I don't see it as a circus, but there you go.